Hi, I'm Kimberly Clark, and I'm a drag queen, but I'm also Chris, a cisgender white dude, and as such, I have a ton of privilege because I live in America. Yay! We're actually going to be talking about white privilege in another video as part of my Listen Up series, but in this video, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about why I will be attending the Women's March on Washington on January 21st, 2017, as a drag queen, as a feminist, and as a man. And I'm going to be reading this because I just want to make sure I get everything right. I'm marching because I support gender equality, and that's basically what feminism is. And in this country, that equality legislatively rests on a Supreme Court decision made in 1973, Roe v. Wade, which was further qualified by another Supreme Court decision, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, in 1992. These decisions allow women to legally and safely get an abortion, which in turn has saved the lives of countless women. But since their passing, their validity has often been called into question. In 2004, I marched on Washington as part of the March for Women's Lives. We were marching in opposition to legislation that was disguised as life-saving, but in reality sought to limit the rights of women. By declaring our march for women's lives, we attempted to more accurately represent what we stood for than previous monikers of the movement like pro-choice. The reality is that most pro-life legislation exists to negatively affect women's lives. And actually, the best way to support the lives of all women is to make sure decisions like Roe v. Wade are never overturned. So why am I marching again? It's not difficult to see how women are negatively regarded in our society.
Just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even know. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. I can do anything.
And no, I'm not going to stop referencing that because it actually happened. But besides the leader of the free world publicly asserting that half of the population should be treated as objects, there are also some troubling trends in our current political climate that are potentially equally damaging. In November 2016, the state of Texas's Health and Human Services Commission ruled that all fetal remains will be required to be buried or cremated instead of disposed of in sanitary landfills. First of all, as a cisgender man, it's not my place to attempt to empathize with any woman that's had or been in the place of deciding whether to have or not to have an abortion. I'm not going to speak for those women. In fact, I'm not going to speak for any woman or any other individual. And that means that I'm also not going to assume to understand every decision that every other person makes concerning their body. And because of that, I would never support any legislation that attempts to manipulate any individual's ability to have complete control of their body and of its functions. Let's be clear, any ruling that requires fetal tissue to be memorialized in any way exclusively serves to try to limit the onus a woman has on her own body, by trying to convince her that getting an abortion is equivalent to ending a human life, which it's not. Now, I'm not going to explain that inequivalency here. That's what Google is for. But I am going to describe how legislation like this limits the liberties of women and helps bolster the patriarchy. Patriarchy, as defined by Merriam-Webster, is control by men of a disproportionately large share of power. In other words, men, who represent half of the world's population, control almost all of its resources and systems. The way many of us think of gender is as a binary, one of two options, male or female. But because the system implies that there are only two sides, any side that isn't winning is losing. The patriarchy exists because of this ultimatum. For men to succeed, women must not. Patriarchy, like consumerism or capitalism, exists because there is a perception that there is something to win, a competition, a game. And because gender is so deeply rooted in our culture, the stakes of winning that game appear to be extremely high. But if, in reality, gender is just a socially constructed concept, then it means that the very teams that are pitted against each other in this competition don't even really exist. For more on that type of thinking, please check out my video on gender, again, part of my Listen Up series. But look, I'm not even supposed to be talking about this stuff because as a man, it doesn't concern me. One tool of the patriarchy is silencing individual voices. The concerns of women are silenced because it is easier to oppress someone if you never hear their point of view. Likewise, men are told to keep silent about issues that affect women. Male privilege exists because of the disenfranchisement of women. So, being male and aligning yourself with women puts you on the losing side of this fictitious binaristic battle. We're taught that if we empathize with women, we're too woman-like or too feminine or not man enough. This fear-based reasoning allows men to disregard the concerns of women, which allows us to more easily, personally perpetuate misogyny. Again, it's easier for us to hate what we don't understand, and men treating women's issues as weird, mysterious, or even evil exclusively serves to keep men in power by normalizing disregard of women's autonomy and likewise excludes violence and aggression against them. In the mainstream media, men rarely even acknowledge the existence of women's issues, like menstruation, for example, and when they do, it's often dismissed or ridiculed as something disgusting or laughable. This dismissal and devaluing of real-life human experiences only serves to disempower women by shaming them and further bolstering the patriarchy. In order to combat this system, men have to not only stop ignoring issues that affect women, but vocally advocate for their liberties as fellow humans. I feel like there's even some stigma about this within my own communities. It's always tricky to be in a position of privilege and advocate for the rights of those who are systematically oppressed. Again, stay tuned for my video on white privilege for more on that. But the bottom line is, as long as I'm operating with openness and respect, and am always listening to the concerns of women, I can take advantage of my very real male privilege to help center conversations that have been constantly put in the margins. I will continue with this approach, even if it means ruffling a few feathers and engaging in some discussments along the way. This amazing speech from Anita Sarkeesian at the All About Women 2015 conference in Sydney speaks directly to this risk and is definitely worth a watch. So in a nutshell, I'm marching to combat the patriarchy, but I also want to clarify who I'm marching as. I'm not marching as a man who is related to a woman. I'm not marching as a man who has a mother or a sister or a daughter or a friend who's a woman. I'm marching as a human being who realizes that systems in this world traditionally operate in his favor, but refuses to encourage those systems when he sees that they also oppress, marginalize, and endanger other human beings' lives. Even if those other humans aren't like me. Even if they're not dudes. I'm Kimberly Clark, but I'm also Chris, and I will see you on January 21st, 2017 in Washington, D.C. to march for women's lives yet again. We are in grave danger of resorting to policies that serve to consistently marginalize those who are already struggling to be part of the conversation. And standing with all women of all races and all classes and their right to control their bodies is part of keeping that conversation as diverse, nuanced, and progressive as it deserves to be. There's so much work to do, but it's worth it. Our humanity itself is at risk. Diversity is what made us human, allowed us to evolve and learn and grow and create amazing, wonderful things. It should be defended at all costs. Please share this video with anyone that you think would benefit from seeing it and being included in this conversation. Any man in your life that supports you as a woman but maybe doesn't know how to advocate for your rights, or any woman in your life who believes this conversation isn't worth having at all. I firmly believe that the continuation and promotion of this dialogue is our best chance at changing the world. If we listen to each other and fight for what's right, even if it means making ourselves personally uncomfortable, we begin to make a world that is a better place to live in for all people. I'm ready to show up for that fight. Are you? If so, I'll see you on January 21st in Washington, D.C. for the Women's March on Washington. Until then, thanks so much for watching. I'm Kimberly Clark. Bye.